Emmerdale, the most dangerous place to live in Britain. More gruesome deaths than Gotham City.
It's not the safest place in North Yorkshire, it really isn't. I wouldn't choose to live here.
Live here at your peril. I'd turn back if I were you.
Emmerdale's a very dangerous place to live.
It must be the most unlucky place in the world.
No wonder they all drink so much in the Woolpack. Village of alcoholics.
The first ever episode of Emmerdale started with an exit, Jacob Sugden's funeral. What a trend this would start. Since then, there's been a whopping 55 deaths and 8 murders. From bitches to, well, super bitches, we'll remember the recently departed.
Oh, I'm sure he will. Are they pleased to see the back of me or what?
And from bus crashes to psycho killers, we'll look back at Emmerdale's most dramatic exits.
I'm very good at heart attacks, actually.
Someone should open a funeral parlour here. It'd make good business sense. In a poll commissioned by this show, Butch Dingle's BAFTA-winning exit stands out as a defining moment in Emmerdale's history. But when actor Paul Loughran decided to leave the show, he had no idea just how he'd be written out.
And usually, you think, there's no way that they'd kill a Dingle off. It's not going to happen. It's like, everyone goes and see Auntie Nellie in Ireland. That's not where whenever there's a problem, we go to Auntie Nellie.
But this wouldn't happen. The only way for Butch to go would be in a crash.
We came up with the idea for this bus crash really because we knew we wanted a big event that would kind of rock the entire community.
The rumours started to fly in the green room. Where there was one death, there could be more.
I went down there at one point for a regular catch-up with the cast, and suddenly they were all in a panic saying, is it true there's going to be this bus crash and, are any of us on it?
Yeah, the cast running around like headless chickens going, are you on the bus? Are you on the bus? Oh, I'm not on the bus.
I was throwing these excuses at the producer as to why I wouldn't get on this bus.
I didn't want to go on the bus. Didn't want to go under the bus. Didn't want to near the bus.
What would Kathy be doing getting on a bus in the village in the first place? She's got a car. She's by no means... She could afford a taxi.
I think we had to put Kathy on the bus. I think it's a kind of given, isn't it? Any kind of tragic situation has to involve Kathy in some way or other.
But they got me on it. They did. And I think I even sang the wheels on the bus go round and round. Round and round, round and round, the wheels on the bus.
I'd heard, that maybe Paul was going to go, and I thought, well, I'll be on the bus as well. And I've not been in it long and not really established, so I thought, well, that's it, I'm a goner.
Unfortunately, I put them out of their misery straight away. I think I could have had a bit of fun with that. I told them that, no, anyone who was involved in the story had already heard from me and they knew what the score was. And anyone else who hadn't spoken to me had no reason to worry.
And then when I heard I wasn't getting on the bus, it was like, yeah.
But on March 24th, 2000, there was a seat on the bus with Butch's name on it.
They've only got one seat on the bus left. Maybe we should leave it till tomorrow, eh?
No, you go. I'd like to get it sorted.
I kissed him and he got on the bus. And I was really excited. She was really excited. I keep saying hi. She was really excited.
See you later. Hey, you be good for your Auntie Em, do you?
And off he went.
But the bus never made it. Faulty brakes on a Tate haulage lorry would tear the village apart. Life for the Dingles would never be the same again.
There's that horrible stillness, the aftermath of... So everyone's just in shock.
Though many were hurt in this horrific accident, only one passenger would be fatally injured.
And Emily didn't cry at all. She kept it in, and the whole thing was about being positive and enjoying the last moments together.
Hiya, Marlo. Have you seen the doctor?
I have, yeah. Troublemaker.
Life's full of surprises, eh?
Marlon comes in and he's the first person outside of Emily who's been told that he's going to die. I'll talk to Zach and Nellie.
Yeah, and Lisa needs to know as well.
He's just trying to hold it in, trying to hold it in because this is his cousin who, despite all their ups and downs in their own personal relationship, it's still his cousin who, the Dingles love each other. They'd never say it, but they look after each other. And this is just, for Butch to be this larger-than-life character to go, it was just devastating to watch.
And devastating to say goodbye to a good friend.
we all had to like hold his hand and we had to say bye because we knew he was dying in the story. And I looked at him and I'm just like that. I'm going, and I'm crying. And I know, obviously as an actress, you know when you pretend crying or you cry. And I was really, really crying because, you know, he was my really best friend on the show. Finally been made an honest man of then. He's like a brother to me when we're at work, you know, and I didn't want him to leave at all.
He was, you know, he's loved as a cast member. You know, he's still a friend of mine, and just the thought that somebody you know and have worked with all as long as I'd been there was leaving. It was quite hurtful that you were actually saying bye bye.
I'll see you later.
It was really heartbreaking to watch. I was in it and I was crying.
They had a real doctor in, and he sat at the side of the bed, and he was saying, "Oh, this wouldn't happen. You know, he wouldn't die like this. This isn't." And you're thinking, "Shut up! Stop it! Just today, we have to believe in this. You know, we've got a magic script here."
Have you gone? I thought you had.
It was very moving as well because it was sort of Paul's last scenes and he'd been there ages. You know, and he's a very greatly loved character and an actor. And there was a strange feeling to it all, really, a sadness that suited the script.
I couldn't keep him warm anymore.
Oh, it was terrible. I still miss him. I think he's terribly missed. I think it's such a shame that he died.
I never cried at the telly or anything like that, but when I saw Butch's exit, that killed me, that really got me.
What did you say?
Coming up, remember psychotic killer Graham?
Are you saying I'm mad?
He was fantastic. He was seriously scary.
But first, Emmerdale, Village of the Damned. 8 murders since 1972. Serial killers lurk in the shadows. Death hangs at every corner. But the mention of one name can cause grown men to weep, can send shivers down the spines of all who hear it. In Emmerdale, there is no bogeyman, but there is Kim Tate.
Kim Tate was probably the best character that Emmerdale has ever created.
Everyone talks about Soap Bitch, Kim Tate's name comes up straight away.
It's very interesting that you can see somebody in a soap who is all bad and you can still care about them. And a perfect example of that is Kim.
Some of the things that she did were outrageous.
Oh, I look back on her with affection. You probably shouldn't, with her being sort of like one of the biggest bitches, but she was just, it was a godsend to play that part. It was such good fun. And, as I say, the bitchy parts are the best to play. The baddies are always the best.
Kim was a blonde, very beautiful, and she was 20 years younger than Frank, and she looked wonderful in jodhpurs.
There was a panache about that character, a kind of style. She was very, very evil, but she did it with such style that you couldn't help but applaud.
Kim had already died once, but like a cat with 9 lives, she was resurrected by the show's executive producer.
It's Kim. I got up, left my office, walked across to Emmerdale and said, "How far have we got with Kim Tate's death?" And they said, "Well, they just shot her being dragged out the quarry yesterday." And I said, "Oh, well, we now have to find a way of, bringing her back to life."
I was actually killed off in this. We've got a bit of a Bobby Ewing moment going on here. And he said, "Oh, it's all right, we'll get around it. So it was a case of mistaken identity on the slab.
But she came back and we worked out this terrific story that she'd got somebody else in the car and stuffed him in the quarry, and her husband didn't recognise her because she'd been in there a while, and, it was a bit corny, but it worked quite well. It wasn't quite stepping out of the shower and nothing had happened, but it was along those lines.
How often do people come back from the dead in British soaps and actually manage to get away with it? I mean, it was such a cheeky storyline. It shouldn't have worked, but somehow it did.
Kim had to come back. She did, especially for all the Frank stuff, And I think, for me as a viewer, I'm speaking now, I wanted to see Kim in charge of Home Farm without Frank there.
And seeing his ex-wife rise from the dead spelt a fatal heart attack for Frank Tate.
You're a dinosaur, Frank. And you know what happened to them?
I cried at your funeral.
And you're sitting there and thinking, she'll crack, she's got to crack. He's dying in front of our eyes.
I loved you, Kim. Remember? Remember. You loved me.
And Lady Macbeth just stood there.
I had 3 heart attacks, and this was the 3rd and final. I'm very good at heart attacks, actually.
And the most brilliant moment of that was when Frank had a heart attack and she went to check that he was dead by using the mirror of her compact. And then she checks he's dead, checks the reflection.
Looks at him, smirks, and then she goes like that, in that, you know, usual, you know, I've won sort of thing.
It was the campest thing on God's earth, but somehow it worked.
But it was quite in character. It was quite cold and cool, yeah. No, it was lovely.
Cheers. To life.
After Frank breathed his last, Kim finished with the father and moved in on the son.
I mean, Kim didn't actually have a nice bone in her body.
Oh! Oh! But just how evil was she?
Well, apart from bumping off Frank, she tried to trample Nick Bates with a horse. I think just generally she trod on a lot of toes. Winding people up, and then the scorpion tail coming in and killing them off at the final moment, you know? And always getting away through hell or high water.
She'd already come back from the dead in any case. She'd already had one exit down the quarry, but no, that wasn't good enough for Kim Tate, was it?
Kim Tate's exit was one of the best ones Emmerdale have ever done, you know. First of all, she starts fighting with Chris, trying everything to get him to give her some money.
You're a fool, Chris. If you could have just let go of the past, you could have had anything. Maybe even me.
Eventually she realises all she's going to do is hit him over the head.
She whacks him over the head with it. What I think was a bowling ball. I was never quite sure what it was. It was some kind of strange ornament.
For me, that was the moment her pure evil came over.
And I'll never forget that he was lying there, kind of semi-conscious, moaning, and her last line was...
This one's on me.
She left Chris on the floor, completely helpless. She'd killed her husband, Frank.
Bye, Chris.
And you can't do much more. What's a girl to do? You know, how do you top that? You order a helicopter.
Only the Tates could have afforded one for a start with their ill-gotten gains. I mean, it's not the black taxi, is it? It is, you know, with knobs on.
She then left off in a helicopter, as you do, and the helicopter pilot says to her, you know, Kim Marchant, which was her name at the time she married Steve, and she says, no, Kim Tate.
Off she soars away, and leaving carnage behind her, and having got away with murder and goodness knows what else.
And it was great spending an hour in a helicopter flying over all the village, you know, spotting your house and things like that.
I think it would have been wrong to kill Kim Tate off because Kim is the ultimate survivor. And actually Kim escaping in the helicopter just seemed absolutely right for that character, that actually she triumphed over everybody around her.
She went over the village of Emmerdale. It took hours, it seemed, to go over the village of Emmerdale, just so she could kind of have this great shot where she kind of looked over the village and almost sort of waved goodbye. And I've actually been over that village in a helicopter, and it takes about 3 seconds. They must have really gone round and round and round about 100 times.
So, where did Kim go to after Emmerdale?
Well, I don't think you can get too far in a helicopter. Because everyone was saying Brazil. I don't think she'd have made it to Brazil in a helicopter somehow. So I reckon she's in Ireland. Somewhere in Ireland. Probably breeding horses and keeping a very low profile.
Well, I'll be flipping heck. I don't believe it.
Kim Tate wasn't the only murderer in Emmerdale. In August 1998, a new character would arrive in the village, starting a terrifying chain of events.
So basically, we get this breakdown, this new character, Psycho Graham, is coming into the programme, and we don't know who is he going to be linked with. And, you know, if there's a psycho, there's going to be a death, you know. So it's like, don't put him with me because I'm all right in the programme. I don't want to be killed off, thank you very much.
This murderer would be paired with the lovely Rachel Hughes, and there was only one way it would end.
Graham and Rachel was one of those great soap stories because you kind of saw it coming, because Rachel met this guy Graham as a school teacher. He seemed all lovely and too good to be true, and you know in soaps he is too good to be true.
Perfect boyfriend material. Good looking and good with a vac.
He seemed like just the dream man.
Definitely a control freak.
The man that was going to make her feel differently about relationships and start to trust men and be able to love someone again.
Creepy is a good word, I think.
Little did she know that this guy would actually end up murdering her.
I don't think he was psychopathic.
Oh, come on, you're just defending him now. What about the CDs?
He rearranged all her CDs into alphabetical order or something slightly psychotic.
I was adding my CD collection to yours, but I don't know how you ever find anything. I'm putting them in alphabetical order.
This is not the action of someone who's quite with it, really.
That was considered very strange. But then I do that too, actually. So...
If love is blind, Rachel was totally in the dark.
So many people said to me, can you not see what he's doing to you, Rachel? Can you not? He's mad. And they sort of tried to warn me off him, yeah. They got quite sort of protective, which was really nice.
The way they did it with him, like, doing these mock-up photographs, sticking pictures of Glenda next to him, you know, it's like, do-do-do-do-do-do, really odd.
Of course, Rachel knew nothing of the photos, but what he asked her to do next should have rung alarm bells.
The second big thing that she should have sort of thought, oh, this doesn't feel quite right, is when he asked her to get a haircut.
Turns out that he'd kind of done away with his previous wife and was now moulding Rachel into his, you know, the image of his previous wife.
Have you ever thought about being brunette? Like really dark brown hair?
No. He was beginning to get a little bit controlling, but she loved him. And all of the other good qualities, he kept on reassuring her and kept on sort of saying, oh, no, you know, I'll look after you. And so she just kept on forgiving him and letting him get closer and closer.
Graham, you can come back in now. What do you think?
It's amazing.
And it was at that point that I thought, this might not going to be quite as much fun as I thought it was, because that looks like a dead dog on my head, basically.
Bless her. Bless her. I mean, I always looked at Minga as Mandy Dingle. That was part of my character. But Glenda always looked so beautiful all the time, you know, lovely blonde hair. And then this thing just plonked on, like a Richard Whiteley toupee, I suppose you'd say. Do you know what I mean?
It was like a big hamster in her head. It was the most comedy wig in the world.
And the colour, it wasn't even a colour of hair, was it? That you kind of go, oh, that's blonde, that's red, it was like dirty. It just looked like it'd not been washed for quite a while. But I suppose if you were dating a psycho, you wouldn't wash your hair, would you?
May 1999, Rachel and Graham head out for a romantic picnic. By sunset, they'd get engaged, split up, and she'd be dead. Psycho Graham was losing the plot.
It was real kind of boiling bunnies time, wasn't it?
Graham went to the cliffs specifically to propose to Rachel.
And he got out the ring. And she said yes.
I think she said yes just to please him, because she was scared of him.
With good reason. It was all beginning to make sense. The dead wife, the new hairstyle. Graham had walked straight out of Bates Motel, and his next victim was in sight.
She spotted a picture and it was almost a mirror image, so he was almost starting to really take control of her and, you know, make her into a double of what his ex-wife was.
He's a nutter! Get out of there! Run!
His behaviour was so frightening to her that really anything could have happened. It could have gone anywhere, as indeed it did.
There was only one way this was going to go for Rachel. Yes, down there.
She didn't kill herself, did she? You killed her!
I just remember being quite upset because I just thought, God, I got upstaged by a wig.
With Rachel not even cold in the grave, Psycho Graham moves in on best friend Kathy. Once again, the perfect gent would try to commit the perfect murder.
He was fantastic. He was seriously scary.
What did you say?
You need help.
Are you saying I'm mad?
Graham and Kathy are in the car and she's fighting to get out of the car because now she's just realised in the last 5-10 minutes of being in his company that he's wacko.
I've had enough of this. Stop the car!
No!
Stop it!
What are you doing?
I suppose again, it had to involve cliffs. It had to be at least as dramatic as Rachel's exit, because people wanted to see Graham get his comeuppance, and of course he did, quite violently.
Yeah, he had this thing about cliffs, didn't he?
Fortunately for Kathy, her knights in shining armour were on the case.
Eric in particular knew there's something dodgy about Psycho Graham, and we followed them. Kathy didn't believe us, and we followed them along to, you know, the north version of Beachy Head and tried to rescue her. So yeah, that was very dramatic.
Keep still! What's happening?
And the next minute, you just see the car going over. Down below, bang! A whacking great big explosion. There she is, she's gone. And then it's just the rustle of grass.
You thought I'd gone over. You thought I had. You thought that was it. Hallelujah, she's gone. And then you got this little hand. It was me. Come clambering back up.
Kathy?
I'm not dead yet.
And she appears. And it all ended very happily.
But what of Psycho Graham? Was this really the end?
Yeah, he was suitably destroyed, as he should have been, really.
Coming up, we take you behind the scenes to see Trisha Dingle's last moments in Emmerdale.
They said, oh, Trisha hangs on for a bit, you know, you'll be in hospital, but lying in a bed. So I was a bit gutted about that because I couldn't talk, I couldn't laugh around or anything.
But first, let's remember Chris Tate's exit, one that would perfectly suit his twisted mind and leave a nightmare scenario for his double-crossing wife.
I decided to leave, and that was a big decision to make, and the writers, the powers that be, have decided to kill him off, which I didn't disagree with. I think that's great. They've given me such a tremendous exit.
In dying, it had to be a death bigger and better than anything that he'd done in life. It had to be the final kind of event which capped off an amazingly eventful life. He was so ruthless and so twisted in life that his death had to mirror that, really.
After 13 and a half years as Emmerdale's resident bad boy, Chris discovers he has a terminal brain tumour. Plus, Charity and her cousin Kane are still flaunting their affair under his nose. He comes up with a plan: kill himself and frame his wife, leaving a trail of destruction. Told you he was twisted.
He's really just, like, confused and consumed with this rage, and he just decides, I'm going to frame her.
The day of Chris's death arrives. For this complicated scene, Peter and Emma asked the director for longer to rehearse.
A blood capsule, which I should have bitten into by then, you don't want a lot.
Both actors want to get the scene perfect.
We went through the lines and we just hammered it until we knew it so well that we could then concentrate on the technicalities of the scene.
So, I'd like to propose one final toast.
It's a real problem when you're doing a death and plus delivering a line when you're dying. I mean, that haunted me for weeks.
That's the playing area. I can't be precise to say.
Well, Chris's suicide was classic because it was a great case of the viewer being let in on the secret. You know, Charity didn't have a clue what was going on. She didn't know that he was going to poison himself and blame her.
I propose a toast to the death of our marriage.
No, Chris, no.
Surely you can join me, for old time's sake.
This is not the end. I'm not going to let you throw it all away, Chris. I'm just not going to let you do it.
But the other thing was to do it quickly, and I hopefully I did it fairly quickly.
I'm not. Chris, what are you doing? Chris, you're frightening me. What are you... Chris! Oh, my God! Chris, just speak to me. What are you doing?
13 and a half years, your last line is whore. And that's the shortest line I think I've ever had to say.
I thought it was wonderful. It was kind of melodramatic, almost comedic. You know, you could kind of laugh. It was that true soap melodrama.
Only Emmerdale, in a way, can get away with these sort of really complex kind of revenge, double bluff storylines that it does. And it was just brilliant.
It's very, very important that a character's death or exit, Kim Tate leaving in a helicopter fitted her character. Chris Tate killing himself and framing Charity fitted his character, that a character's death fits their life, really.
Even in death, Chris has had the last laugh. But will he be missed?
I'm so glad he's left the soap.
I absolutely hated Chris going.
He was a miserable old character, and he was always scheming and conniving, and he was never happy. So hallelujah, he's gone.
Now, here's an exit that no one wanted. Who could forget gorgeous Tricia Stokes, who arrived to shake things up back in 1998?
I'm Tricia Stokes. I'm your granddaughter.
I think Tricia had a pretty big impact on Emmerdale because she was different, you know, she was a Cockney, and she was always one of those girls that you didn't really know whether you fancied her or not.
She was divinely dotty, and she was also very warm.
Dotty perhaps, but when she fell for Marlon Dingle, she won our hearts as well. But after 6 years in the show, actress Cherie Murphy decided to call it a day.
I kind of thought, well, I've done enough now. You know, I've had a good time, I've had some fantastic storylines, and let's make the jump now, and I did.
Cherie was in for a shock when scriptwriters decided that her love story would become a tragedy.
The only way that Tricia could believably leave the show, or leave Marlon, would be some kind of... One of them had to die, basically, and because Cherie was the one who had to leave the show, it had to be her.
They said they were going to kill me, so I was a little bit gutted about that. Only for the fact that I loved it there, and you know, it would have been lovely to go back, but obviously now there's no chance of that happening.
When I was told that Cherie was, you know, Cherie's character was being killed off, and I just remember being, oh my God. And my initial thought was, God, what am I going to do without her?
Having found out about Marlon's liaisons with Steph and Charity, Tricia decided to leave the village, but she picked the very worst night to do this.
The build-up to it was great because there were just like little hints. They shot a scene with a weatherman actually doing the weather and saying, "Oh, this is all this bad weather coming." It was like this dark cloud, or sort of approaching Emmerdale episode after episode.
If you watch the show for the preceding week or two, you'd have to be stupid not to realise, because there were about 500 references to the weather every night.
People would come into a room and go, oh, it's windy out there, and oh, this weather, isn't it terrible? And it was like, yep, we get the point now, there's going to be a storm.
Even Michael Fish could have seen that one coming.
I remember my first scene with the rain and wind machines, and I had to walk out of the bed and breakfast, and Marlon was watching from over the road, sneaking behind the wall. And I was so giddy because these rain machines came on and the wind, and I was like, so excited.
It was the first time that I'd experienced the rain machine. And honestly, I thought, well, they could have at the very least used warm water, because I remember that on the rehearsal, it was, okay, we're going to use the rain this time. And I was like, this is exciting, it's like a film. And it came to, and action. So, Steph, you told Trish, it was so cold. It was so cold. And I remember thinking, oh my God, we've got weeks of this yet.
She started to read Marlon's letter.
101 things going up to number 1. So, number 101. Your feet. I love your feet. I don't know why, just do. 100. I love the way you always laugh at me jokes, even when they're rubbish. And I know you know they're rubbish, really, but you still laugh.
It just made her think, what am I doing? You know, he really does love me. So I'm going to go back. I'm going to go back to him. This is stupid. This is crazy. You know, I love him and I want to be with him. So she decides to go back to the wool pack.
Trisha, what happened? Trisha, it's me!
I was lying under the rubble and Marlon, you know, was saying all this stuff to me, and we imagined saying it, you know, whispering, and of course there was all this wind and rain, and he was shouting, you know, but I love you, Trisha.
I came back, Marlon.
I was under the rubble for hours and hours. And it was quite nice. The prop guys made me they put a little sleeping bag down, bless them. And, you know, during rehearsals I could, you know, lie in the sleeping bag and it was quite warm. But once they placed me without the sleeping bag and it was wet and cold and they placed all the rubble around me, I couldn't move. So every time they went for a tea break, I had to stay under the rubble, so I was freezing.
Thank you, Cherie. Shut your eyes, please.
And for Cherie, there was more to come. At least this time she'd be in a hospital bed.
They said, oh, Trisha hangs on for a bit, you know, you'll be in hospital. So I was quite pleased that I wasn't just sort of going at the end of the storm. I had a few more weeks left at Emmerdale, but lying in a bed, so I was a bit gutted about that because I couldn't talk, I couldn't laugh around or anything, you know. I had to keep my mouth shut.
This story was about to turn a corner no one expected. As Trisha lay in hospital with fatal injuries, Marlon was faced with the decision to turn off her life support machine and donate her organs.
There was the idea that she would stay in a coma for quite some time and that Marlon would wrestle with the dilemma of what to do because he had the authority to say, we have to switch off the life support machine. And we felt that it had been done before in various ways and we just wanted to do something completely different.
So the rules of soap were about to be broken and Trisha would come back one last time.
The show's had the guts to put out scenes like that, scenes of an imaginary Trisha. It makes it unique. And as long as you're not doing it all the time and doing it to excess, I think it's perfectly acceptable. There's nothing wrong with it, with making your audience feel something that they wouldn't otherwise feel.
How are you doing?
Not too good.
You'll freeze out here with that on.
I'll be all right.
Will you?
I don't know.
I think you will.
What? On my own? She's there and he knows straight away that she's in his head and he's actually talking to himself. He's resolving that he's got to go and have her life support machine switched off.
Just because I won't be next to you bending your ear doesn't mean I'm not there.
I want to be holding you, though. I don't want to let you go. So I loved those scenes. I thought they were great. And from the moment they told me about it, I thought, yeah, that is we'll do that really. I knew it would be all right, and I was really convinced by it straight away.
A lot of people that have lost people in real life, you do talk to, you know, your nearest and dearest in your head, especially if you've lost someone close to you. So I think a lot of people could relate to it.
I never took anything for granted. There hasn't been a morning when I haven't woken up thinking how lucky I am. Even even when you weren't there.
I thought that was beautifully handled and made them more poignant because they'd had such an up and down relationship, and yet in spite of everything they really loved each other.
I don't think any other soap could have got away. I don't think Coronation Street EastEnders could have got away with that scene where someone is sitting talking to a ghost, but it worked beautifully. It was beautifully written, was beautifully played. I mean, Mark Charnock is such a brilliant actor. Cherie was brilliant. And it was a beautiful, almost kind of, closure on this storyline and this thing that Marlon had over whether to switch off her life support machine. And it had me in tears, I think, for about the 5th time that week. And I knew what was going to happen. And I was still crying.
When you laugh, when it's all dull and miserable outside and the sun comes through the window, just when you least expect it, that's when I'll be there. You won't know it. Probably won't even be thinking about me. But you'll be happy. So will I. Hey.
What?
Smile. The shot was on Marlon's face, and then he looks and she's gone, and that was it. And that was his time to... He made up his mind he was going to turn the machines off.
I need a bell and candle to keep your ghost away.
They did something else, the Bent Soap convention again, by having a lot of the scene played in mute, apart from the really crucial moments where Mel says, and also the transplant stuff, you must, go along with all, you do all that, take what you need.
Keep your ghost away.
Easy to wind myself up to it, just watching Cherie as Tricia go out of the show, and also Cherie as my work colleague to disappear from my work life, It's time to let her go.
And as I move through nature, I know where you will be. So I must keep myself apart. Here is where I'll stay. Bell, book and candle to keep your ghost away. Hey, 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 hey,
It was horrible, actually, watching her go down that corridor. It was really, and she just disappeared into this really white light, and yeah, it was. I mean, it was good drama, but it was really sad. It was really sad to film, And then that was it. That was her last scene ever in Emmerdale.
They'll have a hard job to ever make anything quite as touching as that again. I shall cry in a minute.
Thank you, Tony. A whisper.
Amidst all this tragedy, was there any room for joking around?
There was all the jokes, of course, because it was the actual chimney that fell on Tricia's head, and everyone was singing that song, What's She Gonna Look Like with a Chimney on Her Head? So everyone was singing that to me. So it was quite funny.
My favourite thing about the storm, which we had hours of fun with in the office, was the old thing that poor Tricia, crushed to death by a chimney. So it's quite literally the old song, What's She Gonna Look Like with a Chimney on Her? Well, we know, because we saw her afterwards.
There is one final character to make an exit with no gravestone in this cemetery, and that's Batley. The only living thing to melt Edna's heart and then to break it.
We got on incredibly. I suppose you can say we clicked. How dare you! The lucky thing is that she trusted me. She trusted me instantly, because just the pure fact that I think the very first scene that I was with her, I was shouting. And she could, at that point, have been really frightened of me. Instead of which, she wasn't, and it was wonderful. It was a wonderful experience working with that dog. And I loved her. There you go.
I'm a besotted dog owner. And I also love Edna. Edna has a heart as big as Portsmouth under that unprepossessing exterior. And when I realised she was going to lose her dog, oh, God, it was dreadful.
The storyline was simple. Batley was sick, no cure. At only 27 dog years, Batley would have to be put to sleep.
I asked the director if it was possible to do it in one take, because I couldn't see how we could do cuts in and all that and keep the continuity of the emotion, because it was so emotionally draining for me. I cried when I first read it on the page.
You're the best little friend I could ever ask for. Always there, putting up with me moods.
It didn't understand why I was breaking my heart.
Pretending not to notice when I was cross with you for chewing my slippers.
And of course, any dog responds that. They don't like to see humans upset. So there's one heartbreaking moment where Shirley's in floods of tears, and the dog looks up at her and puts his paw out on her and puts it on her hand like this. And this is a dying dog. And you go, oh my God. You know, it's heart-wrenching, it really is.
But I want you to know something, Batley. I love you. And I know you love me. And that's why I think it's best.
Of course, that made me sob even more, and I still had to say all these words.
Shall we go for a little walk, you and me? Get some fresh air. That'll be a good idea, won't it?
It wasn't her intention to be precious about it or anything. It just really, really, really affected her. And as soon as she came onto the set and they showed her the dog that was going to be put down, she just broke down.
Edna, I think it's time.
She had to have her makeup done about 15 different times just with trying to stop her from crying.
You won't feel a thing, Edna. It really is just like falling asleep.
All right. At least you're dressed for the occasion.
And it all felt very real for some reason, because there wasn't that many takes and that many different setups.
Batley, goodbye, Emmy. He's the best. There we go. Hold on. Thank you, Paddy.
I'll leave you alone.
Goodbye, precious. You're just going to sleep now. That's good, boy.
The dog was brilliant in that scene as well, actually. It was eerily good. Award-winning performance from the dog, too. It just kind of closed his eyes and went still, and you're thinking, that's not right, you're a dog, you can't do that. Superb performance, you know. Give that dog a contract.
It was just really beautifully done. It was so different to all the crash, bang, wallop explosions and other things that you see in soaps. It was just so lovely because of its littleness.
In fact, the story of Batley's exit went on to affect the nation at the British Soap Awards.
That's not entertainment!
Where one of the judges was Stephen Murphy.
Oh my God!
I honestly have never seen as heated, intense a debate as over that bloomin' dog. And it was like, you know, because it was up against, you know, big stuff like Steve Owen leaving EastEnders, big car crash, you know, big explosion, all sorts of things. And this dog, and it all kept coming back to this dog. And people were getting really annoyed, and folders were slammed down on desks, and people were huffing and puffing. And I think we had to take a little coffee break afterwards, and can take a bit of time out to recover. And but I voted for it, and I was really pleased it won because I thought it was a beautifully done scene.
The winner of Best Exit is... Emmerdale for Batley's Death!
more emotional integrity than any explosion or car crash. I mean, it was up against the Steve Owens' big exit from EastEnders. But for me, it had more relevance for the viewers that, you know, had genuinely been moved by this.
I'd like to say what a clever little actress she is, because she did play a boy, you know. We would like to thank the writers. And Bracken would like to thank Paddy, the vet, for being so gentle. Thank you very much indeed.
You know, you could hear sort of sniggering people, but really, Shirley won that award. She was fantastic, even though the dog put in a good performance, but Shirley was amazing.
Tina Ogle, who works for the Saturday Express, reviewed it and said that I was outacted by a dog. and I'm laughing about it now, but I was really hurt.